Greetings, Productive Programmer, and welcome back to the third module in the Productive Programmer Productive Career. I am so excited to have you joining me. In this module, we are going to be talking about making more money. I think everybody's favorite topic. We're going to be talking about how to get a raise and kind of how that fits into working within a company. And this can apply to a startup as well, or a company that you have that you own or that you work within. Now, we're going to start off by talking about productive communication. And so I want to break down the different levels of communication between you and your manager or boss versus you and a coworker and versus you and a subordinate. And I want you to understand how to position yourself within the realm of a company ladder. So that way you know how to effectively communicate with those around you. You understand what they are looking for and how you can benefit them and how they can benefit you, and you can exploit that so that the team can function more productive. So let's start off by talking about our managers and bosses, right? We have to put ourselves in their shoes and understand what do they want. And ultimately, they're really focused on producing performance. They're focused on performance, and they want to increase the throughput. They want to have you basically do more stuff, get more tasks done, drive the numbers, the metrics that they're using. So if there's something they're using to track metrics, you definitely want to learn their language. Every company is a little bit different, but sometimes they're focused on a particular metric, such as sales or number of new clients or number of tasks that were pushed out into production. So you want to learn how to operate as them. And you also have to understand that as a technical perspective, sometimes they're not as focused on the technical pieces that you are. So you need to find ways that your technical things relate to what they're doing. So if they're focused on sales and getting more customers, you need to learn how to communicate to them in a way where you explain that your code is going to help get new customers because it's a feature that they want. So you need to understand, you need to put yourself in their shoes, because there's no reason to go to them and tell them about the fancy new color blue and red. It's Greek to them. You need to translate your communication to their perspective, which is the customers like the color red. That's why they need it. So that can make a big difference in a sales point, even though it's kind of a simplified answer or a simplified example. But you also need to really to help them, you need to probe for what their problems, their challenges, the opportunities that they have, and you need to offer solutions on how you can solve them. Because when you understand the problems and challenges they have, you can put that into your framework of productivity that we have now with what you want to push for the corporation and for your boss and your manager. Because when you can solve their problems and challenges and their opportunities, you're going to help them. And so to be effective and irreplaceable for your boss, what you need to think about is how you can build influence in your team. Because if you want to be irreplaceable at your job and to your manager and boss, if you are irreplaceable, then what's going to help you get irreplaceable is having influence over your team. So if your team loves you and you help your boss make the team run more effectively, and you help delegate all the BS, like the complaints and the whining and all the nonsense that's going on there, or you can deflect when your boss gets asked a question like, I don't like the way that we're doing this, X, Y, and Z. If you're able to deflect those things and your boss can see that you're saying, I understand you don't like that, but that's the most effective way based on what we have now, you're saving him from having to explain that, right? He's going to appreciate you making his job easier. It's all about making your boss's job easier, your manager's job easier, right? And so to be effective, you want to really help facilitate the team. And so if you can leverage your influence with your team as well, you are kind of naturally positioning yourself effectively for promotion, because you are showing that you can lead a team, and you are also showing that you can exploit those within your group of your team to increase productivity, to get more done on the things that you want to see pushed along within your corporation. And so this is kind of naturally leading into the next level of communication, which is with your coworkers. And so if you can use the next techniques that I'm about to show you, then you're going to be able to build influence within your circle and your peers, your coworkers. And this is what they appreciate. And this is the type of person that typically gets promoted, is somebody that they can see as a leader. So to build that influence within the corporation and within your team and your coworkers, there's a different level of communication that you need to have with your coworkers than you need to have with your boss. So with your boss, you're really focused on, what problems do you have, what challenges, how can I help you prioritize? Those are all things that your boss wants you to hear from you. They want your help with solving those challenges and prioritizing the work in a very similar fashion to prioritizing, as you know, in your productivity part of the system. And so you can help do that on the team level. And the way that you do this on the team level is it's a little different. You are not going to be able to convince a coworker necessarily how to work more productive by implementing the productivity system that you learn in Productive Programmer. It can be challenging. This is the type of system that you're in where you've made a conscious choice, you want to work more effectively, and you're taking action on it. Unfortunately, believe it or not, most people don't really take that step. Maybe it is more believable. Maybe I think that you probably can. I have a feel for that coming through this course. I'm sure that you feel like sometimes you're looking out in the world and you're going, why don't they want to do things more efficiently? And I wish I had an answer for you, but I felt like that sometimes too, where I'm like, how come everybody doesn't want to just do things, a certain type of way? Well, the truth of the matter is not everybody is ready to push themselves harder and work harder and do more things. A lot of people want to just kind of get along and want things to fall in their lap, but that's not going to happen. And you are going to be the one that gets that because you are going to go out there and take it. You're going to go and do what you need to do to get it done. But your coworkers, they can be good people. They're great people, but they can't all be convinced of this. And what you can do to facilitate productivity upon your coworkers instead of trying to train them on a productivity system is to help them. And the way that you help them is because they're just focused on getting their job done. They're focused on their works and their tasks. So you want to probe them, not for, well, to a certain degree, problems and challenges, kind of like your boss, but problems and challenges within their own little realm, and maybe some problems and challenges that these typically crop up more as complaints within the company. Oh, they're doing this, they're doing that. I can't believe we're doing this again. Those types of things you want to help pick up on. And if you can solve for those, you can really help facilitate everybody on the team level as well as your boss. But in particular, figure out through talking with them what their expertise is. And then over time, by observing them, figure out what their weaknesses are. Maybe they're a little bit not as good with user interfaces, or they're a stronger front-end developer or back-end developer, or they're better at communicating with others, or they're really bad at talking to others in a public setting. And so understand those strengths and weaknesses. And also another piece is passions. So things that they like to do or they don't like to do. So maybe they're really good at something, but they don't like doing it, or vice versa. So, or maybe there's something that they really do like to do. And these are the types of things you want to probe for, because then what you can do to build influence with your coworkers is you can offer to help them in areas that they're weaker. And there's all sorts of examples that can allow you to basically trade, essentially, right? So it's kind of like a trade. You're exchanging each other's strengths and weaknesses so that you can be more productive. One thing that a lot of people don't think about is just what people like doing and don't like doing. If you can find somebody that doesn't like doing something, or they typically complain like, oh, I got to do this, I got to do that, and you're able to say, well, hey, what if I take care of that for you and you take care of this for me? You can use that as an exchange to make more productive environment and benefit yourself as well as them. But one of the keys here to really increase your influence with your coworkers that really requires the most minimal amount of effort on your part is the sharing of knowledge. You should never hesitate to share knowledge with coworkers, because it's the easiest way to build influence over them. And trust me that when you share knowledge with them, they are going to become almost addicted to you, like a well of a source of information. And the trick here, though, is to find the information that they're interested in through probing. So you do want to probe what their interests are, in addition to the other things that I mentioned to probe for. You do want to probe for their interests and find out what they're interested in. And then you want to share knowledge in those areas to help them. Or if they are struggling with something, then you want to share knowledge in those areas they're struggling in. And they will naturally gravitate towards really appreciating that. And it doesn't take any effort on your part, because you're already doing this every single day. You're improving your skill set. So all you're doing here is you're going up to a coworker and sharing some information. Now, by doing that, if they appreciate this, which should be fairly obvious by the way that they receive it, if they are asking questions, then they are definitely appreciating it, because they're asking for more and more of your knowledge. And if they're coming to you to ask questions about your knowledge, then you really know that they are addicted to this type of stuff. When you have that type of response from somebody, you should never hesitate for asking for whatever it is that you need. So whether it's that you need other knowledge that they have, you need support from them to back you in a meeting. So you can say, hey, I'm thinking to do this with the boss. Do you support that idea? Would you stand up during the meeting and say yes and vote for getting that done? Or is it necessary for you to come to them and say, hey, I want to design this, but it's going to take me a long time. You're really good at this framework or this programming language. Do you think you could bang out like a prototype really quickly for me? I'd really appreciate it. See, all of those things are really easy when you've built that influence through that knowledge. But you also need to make sure that your influence that you're building with somebody is consistent. So you need to always make sure that you're keeping that line of communication open with and always kind of sharing your knowledge with them and supporting them in that exchange of knowledge. If you are not now, if you ever need to build influence with somebody and start this process, and maybe there's somebody in the company you haven't talked to a lot, then the trick there really is you can just go up to somebody that you haven't talked to in like 2 years at the company and just one day talk to them slowly and surely, and then just keep sharing. What you do is you go up to them, you find the task they're working on. It's just like this system here. You find the task they're working on and figure out what type of work they're doing. You probe them for their expertise, weaknesses, interests, passions, things they like doing, don't like doing. And then you just start sharing knowledge in that regard with them on a daily basis. And then when you finally get to the point where you can see they're asking questions, they're engaged, their face lights up when they see you, then you know that it's okay to then ask. So this is the way that you should think about communicating with coworkers. It is kind of an exchange where you're both exchanging information and knowledge and skills, but you're doing it in a way and in a manner where you are building influence from them. And the most minimal way to do that is through knowledge sharing. And it's really easy to do that because you are studying your skills every single day. And now we're also going to talk about communicating with subordinates. So subordinates tend to typically want to be considered the human aspect of thing, right? So I'm sure you felt this way before. You feel like you want your boss or the person above you to treat you like you're a human being. You want to feel like you're a human being and you're not just a task pusher, right? So when you are dealing with those that are below you in the chain and you need them to get things done, it's important to remember what it was like to be in that situation as well. And typically the person that isn't a subordinate just really wants to be recognized. And there usually are very motivated people that are in the lower position because they're new, they're fresh, they want a piece of the action. And a lot of times they feel like it's hard to get because the gates are kind of closed. And this is where they kind of get that soul crushing experience of being on the job, unfortunately. But what you want to do, though, is you want to help them because they really want to make a difference, right? This is like the phrase that you hear almost everybody say that comes into a job for the first time. They're starting a job, they want to make a difference. Well, all they really mean by make a difference is they really want to feel like they're making an emotional connection to what they're doing. So you want to probe for their passions. You want to probe into their workplace inefficiencies to see what they feel like is inefficient in the company and that needs to be improved. Usually they'll have a lot of ideas, and that doesn't necessarily mean that they're good or they're easy to implement. But you want to understand what they feel and how they think about the workplace and kind of get an idea of what they're passionate about working on and where their skill sets lie. And then what you want to do to build influence with your subordinates in order to really drive the productivity of those that are directly under your management is you want to turn all of those passions, their concerns, and their interests into an emotional connection that they have to whatever it is that you're asking for them. Because they are going to be full of ideas and you're not going to just let them take those ideas and go and do stuff with them because it's not going to align with your goals of your performance metrics that you're focused on. As the manager, you will have your own performance concerns now, just like your boss did in our previous discussion. And you will need to drive those. You don't need to drive what they think is right or wrong. And so the way that you bring this and make it a win-win situation for you and those that are working under you is you take all of their passions and you create that emotional connection. So you want to do things like tie back all of their emotional pieces to what you're trying to accomplish. So this can be something such as saying, hey, I know that you're really passionate about getting things working faster around here and getting speed improvements. We do have this one task that is really important and we need it to get done. And by doing that, what you've done is you've found that their passion is to speed up web parts of the website, and you've basically given them a task and you've tied it to that emotional connection. And sometimes there's tasks that aren't even really that exciting, that don't interest the employee whatsoever. But what you can do is you can find a way to relate it to something. Hey, I know your passion is this and you like to do this. Well, now you've hooked into something that they feel committed to, and they're going to have more passion and drive to really get it done. So it's good to have kind of a list of their passions on hand. So that way, when you're dealing with a certain type of task that they might not be totally thrilled about, hopefully you can go through the list of passions that you know that they're interested in, and find one that's sort of related or indirectly related, and kind of use it in that light of being like, hey, this task reminds me of something that you did before, which I know you are really good at. And if you create that connection to something they've done before, they're going to feel like first of all, they're going to feel like they were recognized. And second of all, they're going to feel more driven to prove themselves again, because they feel like they've proven themselves before. So they have a standard to live up to. So when communicating with subordinates, it's just important to remember that they're really focused on that human emotional connection and wanting to make a difference within the organization, and they don't have much power. So it can be a pretty, it can be, as everybody has gone through that position before, it can be a pretty big grind to be in a subordinate position on the lower level, and it gets pretty tiresome. So the way to make that a fun job is to have that emotional connection and have that culture that drives them and gets them excited about the work. And that's how you drive productivity. Otherwise, you're just going to be trying to force them to get something down the pipeline, and it's actually just going to take twice as long. It's definitely not an easy thing to do by any means. There's not always going to be possible to hook into something that they're passionate about. And some employees actually really have not many passions at all. So it could be maybe not necessarily very easy to do whatsoever. So ideally you want to hire and take on people that do have some passions that you can hopefully tie them back to get their productivity cranking. Okay, so that is it for this lesson on productive communication. The main takeaway that I want you to have here, though, is that this is necessary to help align with your goal of being productive, not only because productivity is not just about having that skill set and being able to drive more stuff down your pipeline through your productivity system. If you can't communicate effectively in a team, you're not going to be valued as somebody that's irreplaceable. And so I just wanted to emphasize again, one more time, the key pieces of the way that you communicate in this model between your boss is understanding their problems and challenges that you can solve for, that you can put into your productivity system of what you're going to push, and the way that you become irreplaceable to those above you in the chain, your managers and your boss, is to create influence within your team. Because if you're able to help delegate all the things happening there, then you're going to be a natural choice to rise up the ladder. And the way that you're going to be most effective when you raise up the ladder is how you communicate to your subordinates, by tying in their passions and creating that emotional connection to the work they're doing, which is going to make your team more effective and more productive than those other teams that may be within your organization. So this is how you create high productivity within the team. It's a little bit different than the way that you create productivity for yourself, because it is hard to convince other people to adopt a full-blown productivity system. You have to rely more on their interests, what they're naturally interested in, where their natural strengths and weaknesses are, and where their passions are. So that way you can drive them as an external influence that they are gravitated towards. So that is it for productive communication, and I will see you in the next lesson.